Hello, one and all, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. I am Nick, and it is July the 26th of 2023. And unfortunately, Quinn could not be here with me to record today, but we wish her all the best. I'm not going to get into exactly why she is not available. She did make an announcement on the Weekly Manga Recap Discord, but I don't usually take it as my place to just kind of speak on what's going on with her, even when she makes a public announcement. So I had to search near and far and high and low in order to find a temporary co-host for today's podcast, and I found one in my friend Forneia. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Forneia, as you and I both agree, you are a very prolific reader of shonen manga. You read them all the time, and so I'm sure
Totally.
you will totally be able to keep up with what's going on, have all the context for the various situations that we find ourselves covering into this week's chapters.
Totally.
Before we get into that, I will give you an opportunity. Can you just tell people where they might know you from? I guess if they can find you somewhere else outside of a random appearance on a Z-list podcast.
Absolutely. So I am Forneia, Noble Mermaid. Little difficult to see that from the particular presentation here, but I promise that is in fact the case. I am a VTuber. I stream primarily on Twitch. You can find me pretty easily at, Twitch TV Forneia. And I can be found on co-host and just as of today, in fact, I do have a Blue Sky account as well, where I am a Forneia VTuber.
Yeah, so I will say that you are the first VTuber that we have had on the podcast. So you're breaking new ground. This is a first, making history here.
Well, the tides do tend to break down the land.
I'm not sure what that says about us, but I'm going to just move past it and not think about it, and I'm going to assume that everything is okay. It is thundering so much right now where I am. Oh my God, it's not one of the things that people really talk much about Florida anymore, given everything else that goes on here. But it storms so much here, so especially in the summer.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that it was clear when I visited you once upon a time.
That did happen, yes.
Last year.
Yes.
Actually, I think it might have been exactly last year at this point.
Yeah, because you were
late
here
July.
Yeah, you were here in the summer, and I think it was towards the end of that. Yeah, so I think you're right.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So there we go. It's got to just be something like once per July. You and I are gonna have to do something completely new together that we've never done before, I guess. So.
Ooh, so does that mean next July is when we get to do the that Bleach idea you were kicking around for several years?
It's a secret. Don't tell anyone about that. That might happen. So, to give everyone, I guess, what to expect, we will be going through our chapters this week. I'll be handling the stuff that Quinn normally kind of takes the lead on. So I hope that I can remember people's names in the first series that we're going to be talking about, which is going to be Undead Unluck. And Forneia, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this series before. So
you have not?
No. So did you have literally any context for this chapter I dropped on you to read?
Oh, not at all. I couldn't figure out anything from anyone or any why. And some people I couldn't even keep track of visually. Like, oh wait, no, this isn't the same lady.
There are a couple of characters, yeah, especially because Fuko, who's the main character, she is dressed very. There was this kung fu tournament basically that ended last chapter, so all the characters were in martial arts getups. So Fuko does look very similar to a couple of characters who just are dressing as they normally do in this
Hmm.
context. But to give you a little bit of the broader idea of what's going on, about half a year ish ago, Undead Unluck went into a not a well, there was time skipping, but there was also universe resetting that happened.
Oh
So
boy.
basically, the world ended, but as part of that, Fuko, the main character, got to start over from zero. With the plan of to do the things right this time, and part of that involves getting all of her allies from the previous loop together, along with trying to actually recruit a bunch of foes to be new allies as well. So that is the broad plot line that is going on with this, and we're just kind of going from step through step with that. And there's a bit of a reiteration with that happens in this chapter.
Right. So we're currently in a new game plus arc.
It is pretty much almost literally exactly that. The only thing that I would say is that it's like a new game plus if it resulted from getting the bad ending because you
Right.
didn't level hard enough, which I know is a thing, but is normally not the thing you would expect from doing that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just over here playing Dead Rising.
Yeah, which I know so much about. Um, that's the one that's in the mall, right?
I think so, yes.
Oh, okay.
I actually haven't played that one very much, but it
Oh, okay.
uses the same system as Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter, which is the game I'm far more familiar with, but I have a feeling that Dead Rising might be a bit more familiar with others.
I guess. Yeah. At this point, I guess I would say so. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, they both use a system that involves like, oh, you aren't able to finish the game? All right, go back to the start, but with more stuff.
oh, okay. So it's okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So we have in the beginning of this to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty of the chapter. Shen wakes up. He won the fight against Fang, but he got the shit beaten out of him when he was going through it. So he's been recovering from his injuries. He gets upset because he sees that his body is entirely healed, and he thinks that Mui used the pill that was supposed to go to curing her brother on him instead, and he gets really upset about that. And who he has to say it's like, no, it's okay, and like my injuries, I'm fine, and I gave my little brother half the pill. It's okay. It's like a sensu bean. It just cures everything. It's not just medicine. It's medicine that cures literally everything, I guess.
I'm just over here going, I play Lisa, so this sounds very different to me.
It's a bit weird to have this medicine. I just as a part of this small plot arc because it has not been the focus of anything that's been happening at all. It's just kind of been the thing that has been told to us like, okay, here is why the characters that Fuko is recruiting this time were present in this part of the plot is because of
Right.
this important thing that was going on for them, and it doesn't have any wider importance because like, okay, we're done here. Uh,
Hmm, hmm.
there's some sweetness that goes between Mui and Shen. Shen has an ability. So there's the big thing in Undead Unluck is negator abilities. So everyone has something about them that often triggers even if they don't mean it to. So Shen's ability is called Untruth. If he looks at someone that he has a sense of affection for, then everything they try to do, they instead do the opposite. So that's why Mui is like covering his eyes up when she's talking to him about stuff, and she's saying like, "Hey, I need you. You made me a promise that we would be together until we were old and gray." So she's covering
Hmm.
his eyes while doing that, and
Right, right.
it's very cute. I love Shen and Mui. They're cute, and now they're both martial arts badasses, which is nice. So then we cut outside to Fang. Fang is fighting with Fuko and finally, basically, because this is what he's been wanting this whole time after Fuko beat him previously. And then he says like, all right, well, you've recruited Shen, so I don't have to, I'm not stuck with tutoring him anymore. So bye. And he gets on the evil dick bag version of Flying Nimbus to go and fly off.
I was laughing at that. It's like, oh, it's an evil Nimbus. It even has like the little swirls.
And so he says, "All right, so Shen Fuko Izumo is the woman who beat me. So if you are under her care, that's the way you'll really get strong. So her can becomes the strongest, so that I can become the strongest instead." And he starts to go off and have his big "ah ha ha, I'm still an asshole" exit. So Fuko grabs Shen, uses his untruth ability to force him to wait instead of going away. It looks very uncomfortable for Shen because she is opening up those peepers really, really, really aggressively.
Yeah,
And
that looks very unpleasant.
so she says, "Hey, I need you for this. I've got a mission that's going to be really dangerous." And so Fang says, well, if you're as strong as you are and you're in fear of what's going to happen, this is intriguing." So he decides to come along for the time being and see what she wants him for. So they go back to meet up with the entire rest of the Union. Nemesis, the evil book, who can't really do anything, is really upset that there's all these people gathered around that aren't part of the Union table. But Fuko just looks around at everyone, sees that their group that she wanted to build up is about halfway complete. And so she sets her sights ahead of like, okay, we've currently got 13 negators amongst our group. We just need the last 11. And we get a group shot of the others that she's looking to recruit. And there's been some speculation over who one or two of these people are. Because we haven't met everyone, at least in detail, that has joined up with this version of the Union in this loop. Some of them we barely knew at all before they joined up with Fuko's version of it.
I'm particularly fond of the carbuncle-looking one.
Describe which carbuncle are you referencing, because there's a few different carbuncles I can think of.
Puyo Puyo carbuncle, in particular.
I
Look for the little bunny-looking thing.
Oh, I hate him. We have met him. I hate him.
I'm glad we're all on the same page then.
He is exactly the kind of character I hate. So, yes. All right. So God likes the bunny. So yeah. So.
Yeah, but I was otherwise like the most interesting looking individual in this entire thing was totally not Manat over there in the bottom right, the lady with the crystal ball, or at least it looks like one.
She has an interesting deal. So her whole thing was, I think it was unfortunate, something like that. So she makes predictions on her crystal ball, and they're always wrong. That's her thing.
I see that you will win this clean.
They will not win this
clean.
Yes. So Gina says like, all right, well, no matter what happens, then the boss's right-hand gal is good old Gina, and like she's trying to make it a big thing like, oh, Fuko, you just said a badass thing, and me, your good buddy, I'm gonna say a badass thing. Doesn't get to finish. Just gets cut off because we got news announcing the results of an investigation given to Fuko, and she's really, really happy because she knows who they're going to be going for next in order to recruit them, and she says to everyone that they're going to have a mission that will involve infiltration and long-term combat. So she says, like, all right, I need a bunch of people to go with me on this. I need 10 people to go with me, and I'll announce the participants. And so Gina's going with her, which she's really pumped for. Sean is going to be going. Billy, Ishin, which is surprising to Ishin as well as to me until we find out what the purpose of this is. Shen and Mui, which is good because they just got here, so it's nice that they'll be coming along too. Also, Mui is straightening Shen's tie because they've just gotten their union uniforms, and it's cute because she's straightening his tie. Nico and Ichigo, Fuko, and she's asking Feng to come too. And Feng's just been told that they're going to go on an infiltration and combat mission, And so he's thinking, what kind of strong fighters are going to be there? Yes, and he agrees to come. Anyway, we go to a high school in Japan.
Social combat, begin.
And yeah, so this is going to be their mission to recruit Chikara, and who is just in school, and he's approached by a classmate who looks kind of a lot like Andy, actually, and I don't know if we have met this character before or not. He's got a design that I guess just kind of like echoes certain other character designs, even if he's not someone that we've met before.
Mm-hmm.
But Chikara is going to class, and then two new students arrive, and hey, it's Gina and Fuko, and they're
Dot, 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 dot.
yeah, they're here to join the class because it's part of their infiltration part of it. Fuko is like all schoolgirly, and she's really excited because she's like, I never got to go to high school because I could be around other people growing up, and now I get to go to high school. Yay! It's not all it's cracked up to be.
I was kind of amused because, like, you look at her when she's kind of, she's kind of wigging out with excitement over there, holding her hands like really close to her chest, like really giddy. And it looks like she's still like wearing knuckle dusters underneath her
Yes.
cardigan.
So, which makes sense because Fuko's ability, she is the unluck in Undead Unluck. If she
Hmm,
touches someone, then she imparts bad luck on them.
I see.
Often lethally so. And like the more like the longer or the more intimate the touch, and the more that she cares about the person, the worse the luck that befalls them. So she has to that's why she's like in full. I'm covering up every bit of skin. And then there's
Right.
Gina, who is literally not even like wearing a disguise. She's just wearing what she normally wears.
Yeah, that was pretty good. It's just like, oh, you just walked right through the door, didn't you?
So we are introduced to everyone's roles within their infiltration mission. So, Fuko and Gina, of course, are going to be students. Sean is also a student, as well as Shen and Mui. Shen might stand out a little bit. Ishin is the principal. I don't know how they got him in that position.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. It's like, okay, it's one thing for like half these people to be, infiltrating as students. Okay, sure, fine, whatever. How did you doppelgang the faculty? What is this?
Nico is a chemistry teacher. Billy's the history teacher. Ichiko is the school nurse, and Feng is the is the PE teacher. And he is so pissed off. It's like, who am I supposed to fight here? uh, I mean, the resources of Union are boundless. So she flat out says, like, yes, we are going to prevent Chikara's tragedy from coming about. So we're just going to take over the school temporarily, but subtly by replacing half the staff. No one will notice. And that is where we are for this. I love the bait and switch that we get here. It's going to be nice that we just had this big martial arts tournament come to an end. I say big. Nothing lasts too long in Undead Unluck. It wasn't a really grueling tournament or anything like that. But it was, fighting,
Mhm.
fighting, fighting. And now it's, hey, we're gonna have some stuff set in a school for a little while. So this was fun.
I'm being informed that there is a memory altering satellite in effect somewhere.
Yes, yes, they do.
I see.
Uh, Undead Unluck basically can just do anything. I mean, they,
Evidently.
yeah, there. So this is
So
kind of par for the
rationality is
course.
just kind of out the window and it's just, you know, let's just go.
Yeah, for all the different things that Undead Luck has done, there has not been a little school life, slice of life parody kind of thing that has happened yet. So this will be all right. So Chainsaw Man, uh, in I I don't know if I should say like I don't like you really came into this without context or like but it's Chainsaw Man, so I don't think the context would really help.
So Chainsaw Man I've actually heard of
Sure.
uh in the first place. it might get a laugh out of you that I first heard of Chainsaw Man because it was actually the first collab with a cheesecake mobile game that I play called Nikke.
I've heard about this.
And that's how I know about Chainsaw Man.
It's from Makima's butt.
I was not playing during the time where that crossover happened,
Okay.
but I heard about Chainsaw Man. So,
Oh yeah, no, there was. I've heard about the controversy of that game from not the game, but from the tie-in. Because when they announced the tie-in, like Makima had like a trench coat that covered up her butt, and so people were like, "No, that's why I play the game."
the real funny thing, like genuinely, uh, the best part of Nikke is the writing. I'm
Oh,
not even joking about that.
is it like
Like that's why I stick with it.
it's
Like
got
the character writing is actually good. The narrative arcs actually delve into like transhumanism subjects. It's actually good. You would not believe it, but that's what actually holds my attention about it.
the best. I mean, the best fan servicey things are those that are just like also just like good. So the writing should be good. So that makes sense. Yes.
I'm being accused of I play it for the plot and like no, genuinely, unironically.
Uh, so Chainsaw Man has nothing to do with sex. Anyway, so this girl wanted to have sex with Denji. This girl that we've never met before was introduced last chapter by Yoshida as just like wanting to go on a date with Denji, and then just immediately she started touching his junk over his pants. And she apparently just like is just down. She says she's heard that Denji's a virgin and that, they can have sex. Quote, I've got nothing better to do anyway, which is just the most flattering thing that you can say to the person you're planning to have sex with. Only exceeded by, if you go lick that dead devil, then I'll let you have sex with me. So in a brief moment, Denji shows how much he's grown for throughout the course of the series. Our boy, our sweet boy, who started off in the series, wanted nothing more than just to have a girlfriend who would let him touch her boobs and have sex with her. He thinks now, like, this is kind of sketchy. Actually, it's really weird that a girl is just suddenly approaching me like this. Why would you even want to date me, even though we've never met before? I've matured. I don't fall for honey traps anymore. And besides, I'm sick and tired of mindlessly obeying somebody for the bait that's dangled right in front of me. So get out of here and have some respect for yourself. Is what would have been really cool for me to say, Denji thinks, as he licks the dead devil. It's such a great...
This was so good. This was such a good fake out where it's just like I really appreciate the subtext here. It's like, okay, so he's doing the degenerate thing because, that's just what he does. But all the while, he's not fantasizing about what he's going to do with this lady. He's fantasizing about being able to respect himself.
Oh, that would have been really cool if I had said that instead of caving immediately. Because my life is not filled with love, and so I just try and fill it with base urges. And then he even like sucks on the tentacle of the thing when the girl tells him to, and he just thinks, she's cute. Wait, yeah, but you could do better, Denji. You could get a cute girlfriend who also won't humiliate you by demanding you lick devils before having sex with them. And they go to Karaoke Fujimoto, which I feel like... I don't know why Fujimoto put his own name on this karaoke place, but he did, so here we go.
I mean, may as well.
I guess, yeah. And so he's confused by this, like, what, or why are we going to have sex at a karaoke place? And she points out that, they're high school students, so they can't go to a love hotel. People will be suspicious. Yes, that is true.
That tracks, at least.
So Denji, smooth operator that he is, says, shall we get to it? No confidence at all whatsoever. The girl, however, has something very important to do first. And she begins singing. And she does not
And
stop singing.
she does not stop singing. And honestly, I'm kind of over here questioning if she ever starts singing because these sure don't sound like lyrics.
This is some sort of like combination between like a punk song and a J-rock song of some sort, with the very poetic lines of smooch smooch, lovely, gropey gropey, horny horny, jiggle jiggle, boing schlick, licky licky. Repeat multiple times until getting into stuff about aluminum, the meaning of rock, the old crew being laid off, and yeah. Anyway, in the middle of this, someone barges into the karaoke booth and attacks Denji with a bat. He kicks the guy in the face while he's sitting down, and then the fight scene from Old Boy starts happening. It's just a line of people come storming in to attack Denji, and there is literally a line of them patiently waiting outside to approach through the door as he just knocks them out one by one, and the girl doesn't stop singing as all this is going on, and eventually Denji picks up one of the guy's bats, goes outside, and just starts whacking people in the face with it, and the girl eventually follows him outside and picks up a bat.
While singing.
Yeah. And
I have to say, like, this scene was extremely No More Heroes in its energy.
just, yeah, Denji gets attacked by all these guys and just kind of goes with it and starts killing people with a baseball bat.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, we have this guy who has no self-respect for himself. The one thing he knows how to do is fight. He gets played by this lady who's basically just looking to fight him, take advantage of him, whatever. And there's just endless dudes coming at him with bats and stuff. It's like, this is just right out of No More Heroes, I swear. This is basically Denji cosplaying as Travis Touchdown for an episode.
So at the end of things, all these dudes are knocked out / dead. I mean, if you get brained in the head with a baseball bat, you could very easily die. And he has like gone into this ecstatic trance of some sort. And he comes out of it just a little bit to observe that the girl has come out of the booth as well. She's got a baseball bat too, and it seems like they're gonna fight based off of the way that they're looking at each other. So there's a couple of different things that could be at work here. It could be just straight up that this girl is a devil. There's been a lot of devils at work recently that have been coming after Denji, trying to kill him or manipulate him in certain ways. This girl was put up to this by Yoshida, who is doing some sort of thing along with family, the Famine Devil, so maybe she is aligned with them. But with all the weird twists and turns that happened, the last chapter was Denji going, "She's touching my wiener," because the girl was touching his wiener, and this is where we end up one chapter later. So, who knows what happens next?
Well, they're brandishing their bats at one another, so, Freud.
Yeah. And we've ended the chapter. I don't want to analyze anymore because I feel like it's just taking away from such a beautiful moment, and also I don't know what's going on. So
Yeah, this is basically like my first time actually reading Chainsaw Man, like ever. Like the names aren't even used here. I wouldn't know the name was Denji if you hadn't said it. So
yeah, she calls him senpai the whole time.
Yeah, this was a pretty excellent. All right, hang on. You have my attention here. Just from the opening alone of of just Denji fantasizing about having any dignity at all.
This is actually a really good single chapter representation of the series. There's violence, there's weird humor, sudden jolts between them, and also an undercurrent of Denji having a deep-seated self-loathing. So
right?
Good stuff.
It was really good. This was a very good jumping on point. Like that was coming into this, like that was the thing that I was very much looking forward to. Like, okay, there's got to be at least one here that has to magically by coincidence be a good jumping on point, and I'm kind of happy it was
Yeah,
Chainsaw Man.
it's a good one. Speaking of jumping on points, I wanted to ask you. So, Kaiju number 8 is our next series. It's a series that has not quite reached 100 chapters yet, although it's getting there. So, based off of just the one chapter that I had you read to prepare for this, how popular do you think this series is?
This one,
Yes.
Kaiju number 8. Since you're posing the question to me here, I'm imagining the answer is going to be very popular. Looking over what I saw, I can't say I really found anything I was particularly impressed with.
This is just a straight up action chapter.
Mm.
And removed from the context of what's going on, I can totally understand why it's not seeming super exceptional to you. Hoshina is a character that is definitely a favorite on this podcast, but this chapter is not really a showcase of his personality. And even though he's fighting the dynamic that he has with his weapon, Kaiju number 10, who is basically like a Venom symbiote. You know, it fights with him and adds its own personality. Uh, it's really just kind of like saying kind of neutral things instead of their personalities contrasting with one another. And yes, Kaiju number 8 is a pretty popular series. It's not actually in Shonen Jump proper. It's in Jump
Mm.
Plus, which is an online service, and it's considered one of the 3 series that are in that right now that are like really big. Chainsaw being
All right, all right,
one of the other two. But Kaiju
right.
number 8 doesn't have an anime adaptation yet. It's going to get one though, pretty soon.
Fair enough. Yeah, like looking over everything, it's like okay, it looks like there's rules that are set up with this setting, and so they seem to be following those rules while also, doing their own thing with them. But as someone who's just coming in, it's kind of difficult to figure out, okay, I see that there are rules. I don't know what they are, so I can't really appreciate a lot of this.
What kind of stuff gives you the impression that they're like rules? I'm curious.
So they're like talking about like, okay, this thing has a core, it's in some place,
Mm.
it's not in any of the places that I initially thought. I have to figure out where it is. There it is. Like, okay, so cores are important. You need to get to the core. You need to Gradius it up and shoot the core. Cool. So, but evidently they're also manipulatable, so these things have some degree of agency and are not like mindless or whatever. So, or at the very least, there's an operating element that is, sufficiently cognizant to, what's the term I want to hear? Adapt as, a situation changes. And that seems to be kind of what this conflict is about, is presenting something new while also attempting to adapt to something unexpected. And
Interesting.
that seems to be a thing that both sides are doing. At least that's the impression that I get.
In this particular fight, and I guess in the string of fights that have been happening, that's definitely the case because this is one in a series of fights that are happening where Hoshina and several of the other top agents of the Kaiju Defense Force have had really powerful kaijus that have literally been biologically designed to counter their abilities. So
Mm,
each of them has had to evolve or adapt in some way for the fight that they're experiencing. Hoshina, for example, he normally fights with 2 blades, but this thing perfectly is countering those abilities. So he has been forced to switch to a single blade technique, which he is also good at, but it's not his specialty. So because this kaiju is not literally designed to counter that, he's been having some success, and that's why he has the edge in this chapter. He's able to actually deal some damage to the thing, but it's a matter of he can't get to the core to actually literally finish it off. And with a kaiju, unless you destroy the core, they just constantly regenerate and they won't
right.
die.
Yeah, I was just over here thinking, I see. So we have Raiden fighting a regenerator from Resident Evil 4.
He definitely looks like Raiden. Yes.
He definitely has a Raiden look to him.
Mm. And so we get this kind of like emphasis on how much Hoshina has trained, how he is a master of the blade. While you were doing X, Y, and Z, I was, yeah, all that. But he's been training literally his entire life with close combat weapons like this, and so he's able to keep on dealing damage with this thing. But then it gets to a point right at the end of the chapter, as he's going for the finishing blow, he's opened up the kaiju so that he has exposed the core. He goes for his quick draw technique, and the kaiju mimics his stance to do the quick draw attack. And at first, Hoshina is dismissive of this, like, what the hell is he doing? Come on, you can't possibly just pull off some trick, and you can't just do this in seconds, something that I've been taking years and years to master. But kaiju number 10 realizes, like, shit, you're in trouble, you need to defend. And the thing manages to strike Hoshina before it can strike he can strike it, and he's only just able to block the blade, but he's getting his ass smashed backwards. So Hoshina's in really big trouble. We were told in the last couple of chapters that he was using essentially his last ditch effort by switching from two blades to one blade. So, yeah, he's in dire straits at this point. Is the point of this chapter?
I think I also saw something in there that gave me the impression that he's like, how do I phrase this? He's like using the last of his adrenaline or whatever, like he's like on some kind of like super mode or something, and that's going to burn him out or something like that. Or was that just the sword thing?
That is accurate. That is something that has been brought up, because basically a lot of the technology that the Defense Force uses is by putting them in these powered suits, like the one Hoshina is wearing, although his is an exceptional case because it's literally made from the body of a numbered kaiju. Kaiju number 8 is one of the numbered kaiju. So in this case, it's a particularly powerful one that only certain people have the ability to actually utilize. Only a few people are compatible with them. But
Right.
because he's a human drawing on the strength of a monster, there's only so long that he can actually use it before, yes, he burns out. So on top of everything
Right.
else, with this thing kicking his ass, he's going to just burn out of energy before long.
Mm-hmm. Not a not an enviable position.
Nope. But yeah, like I said, you don't really understand if you don't know who Hoshina is. I totally understand why you're not getting a lot from this.
Right.
Now,
That's kind of the metric I'm running by here. Like how approachable are any of these chapters as jumping on point? And I'm just kind of filtering my thoughts through that.
yeah, unfortunately, we had a Spy Family chapter that didn't have Anya in it. Yeah, have you heard about Spy Family, Forneia?
I've heard that it has succeeded where Shinzo Abe has failed.
Yes, yes. I've heard the same thing too. Oh man, having a family sounds nice. Oh man. And that's absolutely the only reason that people think about doing that kind of thing. It's not like there's something else that people have seen from this series at all. No. Uh yeah, I think the first thing that I've heard from several people when they hear about this series too is just like, wow, this series is super popular. It's about having a family, and isn't that nice? So, but this plot line, this current plot that we're on with Spy Family has been way more on the spy end of things. Nothing to do really with the family. The only thing you really
Hmm.
need to know in this context is that Lloyd, who is I wouldn't even say he's the main character, because I feel like Anya's the main character, but he's, the person that is actually trying to drive the plot forward. He's the one with the mission to accomplish that is the baseline
Hmm.
for the entire foundation of the plot. He is in he's been knocked out by this this double agent, while in disguise as Yuri, Yor's brother, and he actually encountered Yuri earlier on. They had a tussle, so Yuri got himself beaten up, but Lloyd is actually unconscious and at the mercy of oh gosh, I forget his name. It's something Wheeler. Yuri, however, gets woken up by another agent. He is heavily wounded. He still wants to, of course, go on with the mission. But he's told, like, no, no.
You're an idiot. Go to bed.
Lloyd fucked him up. Like, it was a massive beatdown earlier. So, but he realizes, like, I was unconscious and at that agent's mercy. So why didn't he kill me? And he starts to suspect what's going on. It's like, well, that would suggest something.
I like that transition. It's just like, I'm going to have a revelation any moment now.
Yeah.
Wait. There it goes.
So he's also presumably not thinking very clearly because he's been beaten so up.
Yeah, having a head injury would preclude that.
He was literally beaten into unconsciousness, yes. Meanwhile, Lloyd was beaten into unconsciousness. Wheeler has him and is, like, threatening to, like, peel his mask off, which won't really do anything, I guess. Fiona, his fellow agent.
Like, if we're being entirely real here, if we imagine this man as a luchador, that's the most horrendous thing that you can possibly do to him.
Oh, it gives such an entirely new meaning to what's going on here. This is just it's just happening in a wrestling ring right now. It makes sense now. Fiona.
Oh yeah, and this guy is over here cutting a promo, and then she reverses it.
Yes. Fiona is, by the way, in love with Lloyd, like obsessively, madly in love with him. And Lloyd is ignorant of that, of course, because that's a shonen thing. Wheeler threatens to just break Lloyd's neck and is like, hey, toss away that gun of yours. And Fiona does toss the gun, and she throws it so hard that it, like, breaks against the ground. She stomps on it because Wheeler doesn't realize that she has already entered her berserker rage. And he goes on and on like, oh, yeah, well, you don't strike me as the soft type. Maybe this guy's of personal importance to you. We can't have sentimental attachments in this line of work. I don't trust anyone. I don't invest anything into anyone, and that's why I always have a clear view of everything. It's what makes me strong, and why you and he have no hope of beating me. So Fiona charges him, and she punches him, and Wheeler realizes, like, oh wow, she's, like, really fast. But I've got a block, and he blocks the punch and thinks, well, it's not like, she's gonna be able to hurt me so hard because she's got that small body. And she punches him so hard that his arm goes into his face and breaks his tooth behind it. And
I did really like that. These panels were excellent. It's just, she just projects her fist towards him and turns him into body horror for a hot second.
Yeah. Fiona breaks her arm in multiple places because she has punched him so hard. And so she's ruined her arm and his arm and knocks him to the ground. Does not care. She is still going very in violent murder rage. And Wheeler is just stunned. Thinking like, what? And we get narration to helpfully explain that Fiona is running on sheer adrenaline such that all of the physical mental inhibitors in her body are gone. She's not holding back a single ounce of her strength, which means that she is not preventing her own body from breaking itself apart because she's so angry because he done hurt her man.
Yeah, we've got a gold moment over here.
A gold moment?
Macross Plus.
Oh, well, that's sorry, that's outside of my range, unfortunately. Yeah.
If you turn the limiters off and then things happen, we'll say.
But hey, Fiona, on top of being in a unstoppable rampage, she's also got bars. She says that you're actually the one who's weak because you're just afraid of dying and being betrayed. You're incapable of trusting anyone, and so you've got no one to believe in. You've given up on the world, and you've got nothing to draw strength from. You're just an empty man meddling in the world for no reason greater than your own amusement. I'm not afraid. I believe in that man. I think of him and 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 think of him. By the way, Anya can read minds, and she has read Fiona's mind, and yeah, that's what she does.
I really, really, really appreciate the call out of you're just an empty man meddling in the world for no reason greater than your own amusement. That's an extremely strong line.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Wheeler has looked very imposing up to this point in the very short time that we've known him. He's a super spy able to counter even Lloyd, and now he looks very pathetic. So, yeah, effective. She kicks him so hard his entire body bends around her leg. Of course, this ruins Fiona's leg, and so Wheeler thinks to himself, it's okay, though. She's broken both of her arms from punching them, and she's broken one leg too. She can't do anything to attack me, and then she keeps on spinning from the force of her kick and just punches him with one of her ruined arms. It's such a good panel too. It's a beautifully in motion 2-page spread of his entire body whipping outward from the force of her punch.
Yeah, this is a fantastic depiction of righteous cruelty.
Yeah, so Fiona punched him. That's the chapter. Fiona punched the dude and it was good. So
Okay. She punched him thrice and kicked him once. Okay, let's be fair.
My point is just they're satisfying punches. That is all.
They were quality, yes.
Yes. So, Fiona, I think, has kind of been a bit up and down since she's been introduced because, I mean, there is literally just kind of like one thing about her, which is just that she's obsessed with Lloyd. But, hey, obsessed with Lloyd, and that makes her beat the entire skeleton out of somebody. I can get into that. That's fun.
You know, if you have yourself a fixation and you realize this, then channel that energy into a productive outlet. And dealing with an absolute cretin is a fantastic methodology.
That's true. I mean, try not to like break your arms and legs if you do channel it, but just be careful. So, but I mean, if you do like beat the shit out of a guy as alpha as this guy, then I guess it's worth it. My point is, when you're on a murder path rampage and you're not seeing reason, take a moment to assess the pros and cons, the costs versus the effect of what you're going to be doing. Because that's the ideal time to stop and take a moment to do that.
There is no time of greater clarity and introspection than a rampage.
Yes! It puts everything in a different perspective. All right. Forneia, that brings us to another series that is under 100 chapters. What kind of impression do you get from Akane-Banashi? Do you think this is a popular series? How successful do you think it is?
So, it took me a little bit to kind of figure out what was going on here because we're presented with, an art style that seems rather atypical. I kind of want to say non-modern in a way. But then we're introduced to a more modern art style and we see a lot of people. And it's only a little bit into it that I see, oh, wait, this lady is performing Rakugo.
Yes.
I actually know what that is, and I'm able to piece together just what's going on here. She's doing performative art. And so the question here is, who is she? Why is she doing this? And that other kind of thing. And it seems to be, kind of a shonen take on performance art, theater, more classical entertainment. That seems to be, the vibe I'm getting. And I think that's actually kind of interesting. At first I wasn't really very impressed, but then once I realized, oh, I see, they're just showing the performance, and none of these things are actually happening. This is the performance. All right, you actually have my attention here. This actually seems pretty decent. I'd imagine this is actually doing fairly well.
This is one of the more popular things that has debuted in Jump in the last couple of years. It's I mean, it's not the most popular thing I think of the last couple of years, but it is doing quite well for itself, considering that it is an atypical series for the magazine that it is in. Yes, it is about performance art, and it's great, and I love it. And I think that it does. I think it also speaks highly of the series that you coming into this with like literally no context for what the series was, you were able to grasp what was going on in media res. This is like towards the end of a small arc that we've been on in Akane's story, which was she's joined basically this competition for lower ranking Rakugo, ranking of Zenza. And if she wins this tournament, she gets to perform with a senpai of hers from the same school at a particular show. So that's kind of one of the things that's on the line. In addition to the fact that this is a way of measuring how she measures up to some of her peers who would be going to school around the same time. So, and this is a big climax to that, as well as like there was a big moment that happened last chapter where Akane basically was able to tap into her father, who also was a Rakugoka, and was just, as it turns out, not really suited to doing that. He just kind of didn't have the talent for it, even though he had the passion. And Akane was able to tap into that even and use it as a strength. And she had this big revelation of like, I've always, loved my dad and his Rakugo, and now I kind of realize he wasn't really actually great at it, but I still love him and I love that about him. And she was able to have a much more mature and deeper connection to it and turn that into a strength for her own performance. And that comes out in the beginning of this chapter, where we have this vulnerable moment in this story of a husband reflecting on his relationship with his wife, where he's shouting at her like, "Oh, give me some food," but then he reflects like, "God, like, why
I'm an asshole.
What am I supposed to do around her and stuff?" And we get this understanding that sometimes the image that people project outwards is not telling the whole story, and so when you know that greater context and then you see them trying to fulfill that image, you still have a different impression of them. And as a result of that, Akane's got this much deeper impression and is able to convey that sense of meaning to everyone. And one of the judges of the competition is just reflecting on this, like, geez, like, these people are really drawn into this, and I've heard rumors about how talented this girl is, but I had no idea she had this much skill at doing this. It's been ages since I listened so intently to a Zenza's performance. And then we get a bit more of the story, a bit of just kind of like banter between the husband and wife. But now, of course, as was explained earlier on, we've got the greater context of like who the husband actually really is, what he actually feels about his wife. And so that it puts a different spin on the banter that they have than just like silly banter. And then we get the organizer of the tournament observing Akane. He thinks to himself like, for a while now, I've thought that, she was the opposite of her father. That this kind of art of inviting empathy and drawing people in wasn't suited to her strengths. I thought that she belonged to the Isho school. And that's what I thought, but now I realize that she has actually grown into a member of the Shiguma school, which is her actual master and a different sect of the same roots. So we get an amazing comparison from Maikeru, who is the one who taught Akane this story, which is he gave her 3 different options for the story to perform for this competition. The other 2 would have made her, to use RPG terms, have her fire magic that she already had be really, really strong, but this one, changing time, would have allowed her to use fire and water.
I kind of figured the analogy here, given the visual presented, was like, okay, she has the one, she could have a second, but the third option here is to take the sword and be, more of a multi-class as opposed to a dedicated mage. If that's, at least that's my interpretation of the visual.
That's definitely one way of looking at it as well. But yeah, the point that he's making is that Akane could have just like stuck to someone who like decided her own strengths, but because of the options that she did, I gave her this high risk, high reward option. She sees that opportunity, and on top of that, she made it her own. And so he thinks to himself while watching her performance, go on, you're almost to the right answer. Which is nice because this is still a young series at this point, so it's nice to be told, like, yeah, Akane's taking a big step forward. She's not fully actualized as a performer just yet, so she's got a long way to go as well.
Yeah, this was definitely pretty pleasant, and it's like I appreciated that it's like, okay, we've got some shonen tropes here, but this actually seems to be, rather introspective and insightful of things, and this was compelling for me as a bit of a jumping on point as soon as I figured out what was going on. If I didn't know what Rakugo was, then maybe that wouldn't have applied. So I can definitely see this being something to jump onto easier, if you are far more familiar with, classical Japanese culture or, given elements of, entertainment or just classic entertainment, and, that happens to go through the feed. If you have no concept of what Rakugo is, then I do imagine this is something that you would very much want to start from the beginning on, as opposed to this as a jumping on point. But for myself, I'm fortunate enough that I have in fact played Ace Attorney 6.
Which is the window into all Japanese culture, of course.
Eat your hamburgers, Apollo.
There will be no context given if you don't understand that joke. It's a great reference, though. Appreciate it. Oh,
Absolutely.
there is a very.
By the way, everyone, can you tell that I play video games?
There is a very small bit that is at the end of the chapter, and it's actually a very important bit. I don't think that you would ever suspect this from seeing this, but Shinta, Akane's father, apparently his wife, Akane's mom, told him, "Hey, make sure you tune into Akane's Rakugo performance on the stream." And he's just watched his daughter perform, and he is overwhelmed with emotions, which I'm sure is in no small part to the fact that this was one of his stories that he would perform. You would never get this impression, I don't think, from just reading this chapter. This is the first time Shinta has actually appeared in the present in this series. Every other time that we've seen him has been in, like, a flashback or was before, like, the beginning of the series time skip, which kind of, like, set things in motion. So it's been,
right.
It's been basically 70 chapters since we actually saw him in the present, and it's not just a memory of Akane's. So it's actually a big moment that he appears here.
Yeah, like, without the context of knowing that this man is, her father and other whatnot, all I really had to go off of was this is something that is very personal in some respect. I couldn't pin if this guy was like a father or a boyfriend or something or whatever, but it was pretty clear that the performance that she's putting on means a lot to him. So they definitely land that.
Okay. So, Blue Box, Chapter 110, Interview. So, this is the cute series for Nick. It's the cute series. This is... So, Taiki and Chinatsu are our two main characters. They have been crushing on each other for a little while, and they just started going out. Like, they became a couple, like, a month ago. And,
Hallelujah.
Yeah, so it's Taiki's birthday, And as it turns out, because of a family emergency, Taiki's family is away. Chinatsu, for plot hook reasons, is staying with Taiki's family, unrelated to the fact that they started, being all romantic with each other.
Right.
And Taiki's family doesn't know about it, which means, oh man, it's my birthday, and we're a couple, and my family's not here, so we don't have to pretend not to be a couple. But then you have to understand as well that when Chinatsu has been at her most perverted, thinking about what she wants to do with Taiki, it's been touching his hair and holding his hand.
Ah, yes. Hand holding, the deviant classic.
Mm-hmm. So, Chinatsu's going to make some dinner for the birthday boy. And she says, hey, go get changed and stuff. Taiki, however, says, like, oh, can I help out? Because I want, I want to remember my dinner as something we make together. And Chinatsu doesn't seem very happy about this at first, but he's like, oh, I want to do it. So they're going to make omurice together. And because, they went out when I talked about previously, she was like, yeah, I decided to make it instead of us going out for it and stuff. Right. They start preparing some ingredients. There is a moment where a bottle starts to fall, and so Chinatsu goes to catch it, and he gets scared that she's going to burn her hand, so he grabs her wrist, and then they both get embarrassed because they're holding hands. Gasp! Taiki burns the rice, so he gets fired. He's no longer.
I really like that line. Am I fired?
Yes. So Chinatsu prepares the rest of the omurice, and she makes a drawing on it in ketchup, just like if you were gone out for omurice. She draws on it, and she gives him a little picture of Taiki, and he's got his badminton racket with him. Taiki says, is that a boy catching bugs with melon bread? Which, like, come on, dude. It's literally you doing your club activity. And I like how Taiki says at first, like, is that how I look to you? And Chinatsu says, yeah, this is how cool you look. She's like, yes. Yes, Chinatsu. Have confidence in your art. Very good.
I really, really like that. The whole thing about, like, this is how cool you look, and he takes a moment to actively reflect on it. It's just like, cool.
She thinks I'm cool.
So, like, even though, the presentation is a little on the silly side, amateurish, I think the message sufficiently resonates that, even though it looks silly and could come across as a mockery, it doesn't, because it shouldn't.
It's way better that she is entirely sincere about it, and also funnier that she's completely sincere about it. Because if you think it's an amusing drawing, it's like, oh no, she thinks it's good. Yeah, that's funnier. The key to comedy isn't always just like undercutting everything. A lot of times, just like pure sincerity is the funniest that you can do.
Absolutely, no doubt. And then, we have the moment over here where they're just going into full food porn mode, or at least in terms of discussion, where they're talking about the aroma of the onions and the butter, plus the sweetness of ketchup and eggs all come together. And
this is Blue Box's way of doing food porn. If this were Shokugeki no Soma, then their clothes would have burst off and they would have had orgasms from eating it.
And like I really like, that examination that kind of contemplated about, like, wait a minute, we did this together and this is good, even though, he got fired for burning the rice. It still came out really well.
Yeah, it's nice.
And then we have the post-game interview, which I really, really like.
Yeah, Shinatsu takes, I think, the same bottle they nearly dropped before, and she uses it as a stand-in for a microphone and starts interviewing Taiki about what it feels like to be 16. And she's like, oh, you got any goals? I was like, to reach nationals, and I've got to overcome some high walls. But he also thinks, like, I'm going out with Tsunazu Senpai now, so I can't be a whiner anymore. I want to win more. And she's like, that's not even like enough for Chinatsu. She keeps on going. It's like, oh yes, I'm looking forward to your efforts. But hey, they're also like heading into their next year. Chinatsu was named the captain of the basketball team in like the
Mm,
prior chapter
mm-hmm.
to this. So now like, hey, she and Taiki are gonna have to be like responsible upperclassmen now and stuff. Uh, and
Right, right.
and so Taiki's asked like, oh, what kind of senpai do you want to be? And he's like, oh, I guess like the hardcore type. Yeah. uh, and
I do like I like the internal of based on my own upperclassmen is like, ah, I see.
and
You feel this way because you feel you have some big shoes to fill.
Right. Well, and Chinatsu is a year older than him, so she's included in
Right.
that group. And
Which is what they talk about next.
right, so Taiki says like, "Well, you're pretty hardcore yourself," and then he's saying to himself like, suddenly hugging me, holding my hand. Oh, X-rated hardcore hugging. But then we get into real serious territory because Chinatsu says to Taiki, "Are you gonna just keep on calling me Chinatsu Senpai now that we're dating? I'm your girlfriend now." And Taiki's just like, Chinatsu Senpai! He can't do it! He can't do
Aww.
it! And she was getting so worked up. She was ready to be so emotional over this when he would just like call her just Chinatsu. And nope, he can't do it. He gets too embarrassed. He gets too flustered. But Chinatsu says, okay, well, I guess this is something we're going to have to work on going forward, Taiki. And
I really appreciate it. It's like, oh hey, like we have, teenage awkwardness going on here, but also like no one's being a stone dead dance idiot. And
yes.
it's really refreshing to just see people just go like, okay. Just taking things with like actual maturity. I was actually really happy about that. This like of all the ones that we read today, like this was probably the one that I actually liked the most on first glance.
Blue Box is repeatedly kind of shocking to me in that it stubbornly refuses to follow the most frustrating things associated with like romantic comedies in manga
Hmm.
and shonen in particular of refusing to just progress or characters not communicating effectively.
Right.
Taiki and Chinatsu have an amazingly healthy relationship, even independent of the romance between them, because they'll actually talk to each other about what they're going through and what's going on with them.
Thank pork. Yeah,
And
like I'm generally not interested in heteronormative relationships. It's incredibly rare for me to find one where I go like, "Oh, hey, this is a good one. I like this one." And, about the only other example I can think of that is Bunny Girl Senpai.
hmm,
And I was actually thinking about that when I was reading this. It's like, oh, hey, these two are actually communicating, they're talking, they're being mature with one another, and, kind of working through their own business with each other in their own way, and they're being understanding of that. And they seem to actually have a good chemistry, even if, things aren't going quote unquote correct.
yeah. And yeah, so Taiki still can't call Chinatsu anything other than Chinatsu Senpai. He can't take that step just yet. So, Chinatsu's just like, all right, keep on working hard.
I look forward to your future efforts.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, but this was
I
very
don't know.
cute.
Yeah, like I'm over here just going, this isn't a show. This isn't Shonen Jump. This feels
Yes.
like it shouldn't be in Shonen Jump.
This is an incredibly popular Shonen Jump series, in fact. This,
I think it would have to be. I don't think it would work if it wasn't.
I kind of get what you mean. Yes. Yes. So Blue Box, cute as always. It was very good. Now, Forneia, tell me, how popular do you think Cipher Academy is? It's a chapter 33.
This one, this one had like a lot of talking going on, and a lot of it is going on about rather specific things, and there's just like some some like a dragon slash yakuza style introductions where it's just like, ah yes, this class, this position, this name, and I thought that was pretty amusing. I feel like if something is in, Shonen Jump or something, and it hasn't been, pulled in the first like 3 months, it has to be doing at least decently.
That's, I guess, that's a pretty accurate assessment, I would say. So Cipher Academy is not like popular, I would say, but it
Yeah, like
does
this
well
was kind of hard for
enough.
me to break into. Like, okay, we're talking about like all these extremely heady things with these characters that are not really being given any particular like momentum context at all. I was like, okay, like if we look back at say, Kaiju number 8, I have absolutely no context going into it. I wouldn't know anything about it, but it can at least kind of sort of interpret a few things just by like considering a moment or another. Cipher Academy just kind of feels like, okay, if Kaiju number 8 has rules, then this one has too many rules. And I feel
Yeah,
like that's probably the point.
it kind of is, yes. The closest thing I think of a very popular Jump series that I think that this could equate to would be Yu-Gi-Oh, which
Right.
famously had a lot of like really confusing rules to the various games that are played with it, and also originally at least would jump between a bunch of them. That was the entire point, was it was the king of
Right.
games. There would be a bunch of different challenges that would happen, and they would always be different. Cipher Academy, they are always related to solving some sort of code,
Right.
although the interpretation of code is often very loose, and this is about the loosest it's gotten before, because we do get a breakdown, a rundown, fortunately, of the rules of the test that we're in the middle of this, which is there are three teams trying to capture each other, uh, and this is also done by solving puzzles. So,
Right. Like I'm watching like this whole thing because like I feel like trying to give like a point by point of this is kind of fruitless if I'm being entirely honest. We get to the point where it's just like, okay, this lady is going to solve these three puzzles all at the same time. And the most like absolutely ridiculous one is the stupid leaf over here.
yeah,
With like, okay, solve this mathematical number code, but also notice that the Shonen Jump initials are formed from the stem of the leaf. And I'm like, where did you get that? Where did you get this leaf? How many of these Shonen Jump leaves do you have in your backpack that you're just ready to break out at a moment's
and
notice?
scratched out the numbers with her fingernail too. It seems. Uh, yeah, there's some weird puzzles. The whole point of the chapter is that anonymity requested comes across in all at one go three members of the slug team that she's looking to capture. She snatches their tails, gets presented with three puzzles, and she first makes out like, "Oh, hey, yeah, take me on one by one." And instead, they're like, "No, we're gonna present you all our puzzles all at once." And they present them to her, and she solves all three of them in 10 seconds and captures all of them. Uh, the the sound puzzle is bullshit. It's like let's assume that the rocks laid out are actually
Yeah, I
planets.
was
Like,
like,
come on, fuck off.
what even is this?
And then there is, yes, one of them is about the 55th anniversary of Shonen Jump, which you're supposed to get because the stem looks like a W and a J. But at least like
I'm
that
like,
one's a
that's a
math puzzle.
fourth wall one. It's like, okay, I can
Yeah,
give that one like, okay, that one's kind of a cute joke, but like, what? No.
and then the puzzle with the sundial is just kind of stupid. But I guess it makes sense because it no longer works as a sundial. So while this is happening, Enemy Request is leading them all through. One of Class E, who is tasked with one of the group tasked with actually capturing, uh, not capturing, but with basically measuring the rules to make sure that nobody actually breaks anything. Enemy says like, "I'm not going to take you directly to our hideout to capture you guys. I'm going to see if you guys can also work defensively for me by capturing one of the people trying to capture me." In other words, I'm making you guys my subordinates for right now, and they are very freaked out by this, that she's just very casually telling them all this stuff. And we do check in very briefly with Iroha, who is just standing guard at base to make sure that there's someone at their jail, because he can't move around very well because of the ball and chain that was locked around his leg. And it was a thing. It was a whole thing. But then he starts thinking.
I was just kind of wondering, like, what this prison nonsense over here is about. Like, bear in mind, like, all these characters are, like, kind of blending into same face territory for me. So it's like, oh, I didn't even realize this was a different character.
There is a bit of that, and also, unfortunately, like, there's so many characters in Cipher Academy because we had kind of just gotten to know about 2/3 maybe of Iroha's class A, which also includes anonymity requested, before it was like, okay, now for interclass competition. 6 people from these 5 other classes are also going to be introduced. It's just so many characters.
Yeah, this one's a bit overwhelming. I would definitely not recommend this one as a jumping on point.
Even if you read this from the beginning, you might be very confused, honestly. It's always so much going on. It's also very fun sometimes because it's so ridiculous. And we close our chapter with Nohime, who is our semi-blind and princessly character. She is being approached. She has been approached by 3 people looking to capture her. So, she's going to have to find a way to try and get out of this situation. And that's where we leave off.
How about a bribe?
Yeah, she offers to hire them for a bunch of cryptocurrency. By the way, Morgs is cryptocurrency for Nick.
Of course it is.
It's Cipher Academy. You can't just have like regular currency. It's got to be something you got to solve an equation to get. It's fine.
I figured it was a more mundane thing. It's like, oh, of course, because ciphers are formed out of cryptography.
Yes. It's like that Justin Timberlake movie, In Times, and it's like the seconds are in your veins, and that's what you run on. So if you run out of morgue, then you actually die. So money is literally your lifespan, but it's cryptocurrency also.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh boy, it's time for new Exorcist. So.
Oh, is that how you're supposed to pronounce this? I didn't even think of that.
No, but yes. It's the right way to say it, but it's not the correct way to say it, but it's the right way to say it. So
I see. It's the non-canon but morally correct pronunciation.
New Ways Exorcist. What do you think about this series?
After reading this one, my thought was, yeah, that's the shonen manga. There were a couple in here where I'm like, I'm surprised this isn't Shonen Jump. I looked at this and I'm not surprised this isn't Shonen Jump. This is precisely where this belongs.
Are you aware of Maho Sensei Negima?
I have heard the name. I have not indulged.
Sure. So Ken Akamatsu, the writer of the series, famously he in the late 90s wrote Love Hina. Which was, a pillar of the harem comedy manga genre.
I was going to say, there's a bunch of ladies and one dude. Is this a harem thing?
It is not just a harem series. It is a genre-defining harem series. Like that and Oh My God.
Hina. I know about that one. I know about that trash fire. I'm talking about
this one. So the reason I bring up specifically Negima is that after Akamatsu Ken finished that, he took a little bit of time off, and then for his follow-up series, he launched Negima, which starts off with Negi Springfield. He is the boy teacher of an all-girls class. Oh my gosh, it's going to be another ecchi love comedy series with a harem. And that is true, but also it was Akamatsu's way of backdooring in a battle series where almost all the girls in the class end up becoming like mages or martial artists or stuff, and so there is an entire huge battle series that happens alongside there being the harem comedy elements of it. Niue's Exorcist started off looking like it was a Bleach or Yu Yu Hakusho clone, as in, oh, there's this boy at this school who is suddenly introduced to this world of spirits and he gets exorcist powers and he has to fight them. And then it immediately devolved into being a harem comedy, like a chapter after that. So
Oh wow,
it
speed
didn't
running it.
it did an inverse Negima where it was like, oh, it'll be an Exorcist Shinigami series. Like, no, it's a harem comedy. It's and that does occasionally have fight scenes in it still, yes. And we get both of them in this chapter, which is called Beach Memories, because there was a beach chapter immediately prior to this where the girls were in swimsuits, because of course they were.
Yeah, and they're in them at the back end of it as well.
Yep.
I was kind of getting an impression that's like, okay, this seems typical for the kind of thing that I would associate with Shonen Jump. And then, we look at the single dude going on here, and oh, there was tension between everyone, but after the course of events, we always think you're actually pretty cool and you're all right, and oh hey, wait, these are teens in swimsuits.
Yep.
I'm getting an impression from here.
Yeah. Yajima, he got to look cool in this chapter, which was essentially by just going, "Ah, you're like your parents died like my parents." Yeah. This
to the earlier question about how well do you think I think that this one is doing, I'm going to say I hope it's not doing well.
Well, I'm sorry to dash your hopes for
Of course.
this series. It's did the most basic thing you could do, and it worked perfectly.
Of course.
I'm not going to pass judgment on people for their taste, but the target demographic of this series has bought wholeheartedly into it. And all the things that you can say about this in terms of like, well, so Gakuro is a guy who's very sincere and he's surrounded by beautiful women and he's slowly impressing them all one by one. You can just like describe that, and a large group of people will say like, well, that sounds like kind of a boring romantic comedy. And some people will be like, oh, that's wonderful that girls love him because he's a nice guy and so they want to make out with him while they are in their booby suits. And yeah, so depending on your outlook, you can describe the same thing and get different reactions from people. That's just kind of what's happening. This chapter is about Yajima both like helping out the Exorcist girls who were mocking him before, while his partner in this instance, God, I keep forgetting her name, Fuyuki, I think. She is saying like, why are you even bothering to save them and stuff? If you try and look out for other people like that, then eventually you're going to get killed. Like my parents got killed, and Yajima goes, "Your parents died. My dad died. We have that in common. But I'm going to save everyone anyway." And he saves everyone. He saves in particular Sujita, who was the one who was bullying him the most ruthlessly. And she is very, grateful towards him. She apologized for bullying them before. Suo Senpai shows up. They have some meat together, and so
Message.
Yes, eat that meat. So Fuyuki is like, oh my god, the meat's good because she's never had some before, I guess. She says she's never eaten meat before.
The entire exchange on the back end was very strange, and I couldn't really wrap my head around it.
She says, I have no recollection of eating meat, like, at all. Which, how? I mean, were you forced to be on a vegetarian diet? Like, I'm not saying that, like, that's, vegetarian diets are bad. I just mean, like, she has...
Yeah, like, if you're rolling vegetarian or vegan, that's cool, but not doing so with any voluntary action, that leads to questions and leaves me concerned.
So on top of that, like she comes from an abusive family. Like she has
Oh boy.
expectations placed on her, but those expectations are to be a strong combatant to serve the family. So why can't
Hmm.
she have protein? Is my
Yeah,
point.
that's kind of like, what are we just doing like
Fujino.
the Rocky raw egg shake every day? Just goes up and down the stairs at the high school or whatever.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Does she
Like,
only punch meat? Is that it?
oh man, it doesn't make sense to me. But it's in the chapter. It's canon. She's never eaten meat before. Okay.
I tell you what, if they do another switch and this and like suddenly it just becomes Rocky, I'm actually into it all of a sudden.
Just an old man shows up. We're gonna train you, kid. We're gonna have you surrounded by even more women.
Oh no, for the lady, forget the guy.
Oh,
I,
okay.
I want her to be Rocky.
Uh, just abandon all the Exorcist stuff and just like, no, we're gonna train Fujino to fight Apollo Creed. Yeah, here's Carl Weathers. He's right here. He's fine. He's
See, like that would actually get me on this. It's like, okay, we're gonna bait this one thing. Now it's harem, except no, it's Rocky.
just
And this lady's the boxer. It's like, okay, you know what? You know what? The double bait and switch. You have my attention. You have enough respect that I want. You give me enough respect for that. I want to check it out.
so Yajima, he needs to go to the bathroom. Runs literally into Sujita somehow. Like there's no like it's difficult to assess exactly how they ran into each other, but they did. But then Suchita is like she's much more like timid and is like more respectful towards him, and is like, oh, I'm sorry for saying all those mean things to you, and thanks for saving me. And Yajima's like, you don't have to help me out respectful. You can just go back to calling me Gaku if it's easier for you to say. And I'm also sorry about earlier. I'm sorry I was such an easy target for your bullying. I mean, admittedly, he did accidentally touch her boobs somehow, but I guess maybe that's what he's
Oh,
apologizing for.
like, I
Anyway,
guess whatever.
anyway, she's got a crush on Yajima, I guess. She blushes and is like, okay, I'll call you that from now on. I mean, admittedly, Sujita is the first of like the four beautiful women in the quote unquote harem who actually explicitly is attracted to him. Like all the other girls have just kind of been like, go after that girl instead. So, uh,
Like, no lie, the whole thing of just call me Gaku, I'm just like, now hang on here. That's one syllable away from another supposedly derisive name that is embraced by a shonen manga protagonist. Hmm.
but that guy understood what love was. He didn't, it's not like, people would like be romantically interested in him and you just wouldn't understand it. It's an entirely different character.
It just felt like cheap heat to me, you know?
That's it. That's the chapter. That everyone gets along now. Hooray! All right, Tenmaku Cinema, scene 15, movies and music. So, why you tell me? What do you think? How well do you think the series is doing for now?
So this one was actually pretty easy to follow, with, the set they've got going on. We have a bunch of students going over movie production and everything that goes into that. Is like, okay, we did recording. Oh, wait, hang on. Audio's important. Right. Okay, audio guy, can you audio? You're pulling this on me so quickly. Okay, fine. Let me audio. Give me a couple days. And,
And then he
and
audios.
then he audios. Right. With a little motivation from being able to just talk with someone about why he audios. And, it was simple enough, but I appreciated that, the goal here is to, you know, uh what's the word I'm looking for here? I don't want to say make art because it sounds
Mhm.
overly simplified, but
It's
to
about the creative process.
yes, to work on a creation. Um, and that's something that I find to be interesting. I am, in the creation sphere
Mm.
myself, in a manner of speaking, as a VTuber. Honestly, like I've been hanging around with a bunch of other VTubers who are like, oh yeah, I need to get on with trying to see if I can get some traction doing these like YouTube Shorts things or the TikTok and all that other kind of things. Like, so now my head's like kind of in the territory of, all right, what can I do to make, these kind of videos? So like for the current headspace that I'm in, a manga about, the creative process and like, oh, we were doing this, and then it occurred to us partly through the editing process that we have missed a very crucial thing and we
Yeah.
need to add that. It's like, ooh, that is like, as a reader, something that I appreciate as someone who is often very forgetful or misses details until they crop up to be an issue. So going over those kinds of creative stumbling blocks, especially with the inexperience, the unfamiliar, or, you know, just, folks who are in the learning process, I find that very relatable. And I think that there's a lot of creative types out there, especially nowadays, that would greatly appreciate this as, as a concept in a series. So this is one where how well do I think that this is doing? I'm hoping this is doing well, but I also have a feeling that you're going to tell me that it's not.
It's not. No. Uh I mean it's hard to know for certain right now. Because like we don't know how well like the first volume of the series has sold yet, I don't think. Uh but in terms of how it looks like Shonen Jump is kind of like positioning it doesn't seem like its chances are very good right now.
Right, right,
So we're not super optimistic about how about the series lasting much longer, especially because in recent chapters, it feels like certain developments have kind of like been pushed up a bit in order to kind of like
right,
grant certain things some closure when maybe we would have held off and developed them over more time if the series were not going to be canceled.
right. Yeah.
Nothing is certain until the actual last chapter comes out, of course, but it seems like things might be heading that way. I do like the chapter on its own. I do think that it's a great, just like kind of encompassing of a lot of the stuff that does have to be worked on. It was nice that Akitsu, who's just kind of been a supporting character through much of this, got his own kind of chapter, and it was nice to see him getting some one-on-one time with Kurai,
Hmm.
who is a character that he's interacted with before, but like never one-on-one before.
Right,
And it's also nice because uh, within this series, Kurai is like a popular child actress, so she was outside of the club that Hajime was part of prior to starting to make this movie that they're making. So she's
hmm
not as familiar with everyone else as they are with each other. So it's nice that she's the one who kind of like gives him the little bit of a push to get going, is because like it's a fresh
right,
perspective for him. It's a nice
right.
touch.
Yeah, I was getting the kind of feeling that uh this lady's kind of the outsider in the situation, not like, to a tremendous degree, but the one who's, I suppose, the least familiar. I was getting that impression. So I agree with you with just having, the fresh perspective, just being like, it's always something that I've always been kind of fascinated with, in that there's a bit of a phenomenon where in some respects, it's easier to discuss personal matters with
Hmm.
a complete stranger than it
Yeah.
is with those who you are familiar with, because there's not going to be any judgment or any kind of preconceived notion about
Right.
that. Folks will just kind of take what you say at face value, unless they're given some reason to think otherwise. But short of that, it's like, okay, you're telling me that, such and such and such, this and this and this. Okay. All right. I see that. And so here's my perspective on that. And, as you say, that kind of fresh perspective can be very, you know, in a practical terms, very helpful and productive and inspiring in ways. And from the perspective of, of being, a piece of media, that can be seen as, wholesome and, relatable and those other kinds of things.
Yeah. There was one bit of this that I didn't quite get because Kurai makes the point that Akitsu is like, oh, you come off as so aloof, but it's really just a facade. I don't know if I ever got the impression that Akitsu was supposed to seem aloof. He's definitely seemed like he's calmer and more mature than the other members of the club. I don't know. Maybe that's just like the kind of energy that I normally give off too of just like, if you're quiet and calm, then you like seem like you're arrogant or something, and I don't realize that about myself. So
Yeah, given what you say about he's kind of been like something of a background character, that sounds like a bit of a fourth wall lean to me.
possibly maybe this is a matter of like, just again kind of needing to rush the writing a bit of like, oh, we'll just have a character say this is how they were supposed to come off while they were working on the movie. I also like the note it ends on with Hajime listening to the song, and he's like reading more into it than Akitsu was when he was making the music.
Oh boy.
Such a
I don't ever go to a piece of music's YouTube comment section to see
no.
what the super nerds ever talk about there. Because if you ever want to find where the people who really like something are, go to its music pages. That's where you're always
Mm-hmm.
going to find them.
And sometimes you'll find nice insights, and sometimes you'll find the most obvious observations in the fucking world by people who have no awareness of how obvious they are. Yeah, all right. So, and then we end the chapter on like, we gotta go film a beach scene because presumably Shunseki was like, look, I've been good. I've only drawn one bikini scene in this entire series. I've been good. We're going to fail. Let me draw her in more bikinis, and is being let off the leash. But that's the note we end on. And yeah, so I'm trying not to like get my hopes up and be like, oh, maybe it'll last. And I'm just kind of trying to enjoy the series while it's around.
Yeah, hearing that it's kind of on the struggle bus, like the whole announcement about beach episode next week,
Yeah.
like that does sound pretty desperate.
All right. The Elusive Samurai, Chapter 119, Tone River, 1337. Forneia, why don't you go over where we were last time?
All right, so last time we were, I have no idea.
Truth be told,
I can't even pretend like. No lie, I looked at the first panel. It's like, oh, this one stars a lady. Oh wait, no, it doesn't.
no, nope. He's just a pretty boy. That's all. Uh, um, even I feel like I don't really remember what happened last time. They did some. They rode on horseback.
The Elusive Samurai. It just eludes your memory.
I really liked this series in the first couple of months of its publication, and it's been very hit and miss for a while at this point. Just so much just focusing on like the macro of stuff that is happening because which is partially because it's a historical fiction series, so this is based on historical events. So there are certain beats that kind of need to happen, certain figures that need to be introduced, and so often there'll be like, oh, and this figure was an important person in this. It's like, yeah, but I don't care about who they are. I just want, like wacky adventures with, Tokiyuki and all the people you made up. And we're not really getting that. Tokiyuki, he does this big sake toast with a bunch of people. And then they all throw their dishes on the ground afterwards. And we are told like, oh yes, it's sacred sake from cups that will be used once and then discarded. And it's like, why?
Tradition.
Tradition.
Yeah, like my first thought was this was like a Sengoku Jidai kind of thing, but like I don't know.
I mean, it is set in, the 14th century,
All
but
right, that would be the period, yeah.
right. So they've had this thing. They're like, all right, we're going to go and we're going to win. And Kojiro looks over at his master, and he thinks like, oh, every time that he suffered a loss, he's dried his tears and then looked more and more like a lord of war. Tokiyuki's drunk because he had this tiny little dish of sake. Hey, he is like 12, so that makes sense. So
Yeah, I was just kind of like looking at this, and they're definitely going for the historic angle with this, and you know, the generics that are all just kind of hovering around all of them.
all with the
You
same
know,
face, all the same facial hair. Yeah.
all of them being big, strong dudes. Um, I don't know. Like I was just kind of looking through this and just kind of going, okay, we have period. We're going to talk strategy. We're going to use those little, you know, Tetris shapes that are used to indicate, warband sizes and
Right.
whatnot, and all of those, you know, historical recreation, presentation kind of things. And then we get to this scene where it's like, okay, what is the enemy commander? And the enemy commander just like talks mad shit to his army. I'm like, what the hell am I reading over here?
So that's not the enemy commander, by the way. Akie is Tokiyuki's ally, and he's talking shit to Tokiyuki's men, and just basically says that they're all shit in order to get them riled up so that they'll fight better.
Oh, evidently this is pre-Sengoku.
So that's what's going on. It's a really weird sequence. Didn't really do it for me, but I can see how if it might be entertaining to some. But yeah, all the soldiers are really fired up. They start to ford the river to go after Ienaga's forces. And yep, he is waiting for them, and he's thinking to himself that he's got a big opportunity here because, hey, I was denied the right to avenge my fallen comrades because Tokiyuki committed suicide. It wasn't actually Tokiyuki, as is revealed at the end of this chapter. So Akie, by fording the river, he's getting a bunch of the sort of forces to, like follow after him, and then Hojo's forces will, attack from the rear and ambush them. And as they ambush the Shiba forces, Tokiyuki just shows up and says, I'm Hojo Tokiyuki in service to Emperor Go-Daigo and the Southern Court. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And Ayako and Kojiro engage, start cutting down some people, and Ienaga realizes, like, oh, Tokiyuki is alive, and I can get revenge on him and stuff. Okay.
I basically was just over here going, all right, so a bunch of names got thrown around, and this art style is confusing.
Yes. That's kind of often how it is, honestly.
Like there was just so much loving detail into like every single unpleasant feature of, the angry men. And then like getting ordered around by this Kill a Kill looking guy. And like it just feels like everything's inconsistent in appearance.
Akie is a Kill character. I never thought of them that way before. But yeah. All he'd have to do is like wear a codpiece, and yeah, it'd totally be one. Yeah.
Pretty much. And it's like, oh yeah, this commander is like the prettiest person here commanding the ugliest men. I can't.
Okay. Black Clover. Do you remember what happened last time?
I was constantly thinking Black Clover, Black Clover, Black Clover. That's the one with the maid, right? And I don't think it is. That's Black Lagoon.
Oh.
So I was coming into this going like, is this that? No.
Did you how, how long did you get into the chapter before you realized that?
I think I reached the end of it and just concluded, all right, this
It's a
can't be
different
it.
series. Oh man. I don't even know if she's like even like has shown up in that series for a long time either. I think she was relevant to like one plot line. Uh, so
And of course, that's the one I heard about.
Asta is he's trying to reunite with his people on the other side of the world. The Black Bulls have got that big ritual thing going in order to reunite them. We saw last time that he had been able to make it to the other side, and so we cut backwards a little bit in time to see like the last minute preparations as Asta saying goodbye to all the people in the eastern country who have been looking after him. Portal opens up. Fenrir comes to grab him. Before he goes, Ryuya points out like, "Oh, why don't you take Ichika with you? Because she's super strong too." And she
And
protests at first.
and
Yes.
these people have incredibly detailed and yet also incredibly sparse eyelashes, and they just look very odd to me.
Yes. Yes.
Like the other characters don't have that going on. They just have like, okay, the eyes are, we focus on the sockets. We've got, you know, the spheres that comprise the eye and all this other business, and then just these two just have the most lovingly detailed and yet way too few to be possible eyelashes.
I see your point. Yes, that's going to distract me every time I see one of these characters now.
Welcome to
So,
what it was like reading this.
thanks for that, Forneia. So Ichika goes off with Asta. They jump through the portal with Finral. They see all the Black Bulls are doing great, doing great. Look at all the blood that used to be in their bodies. They're doing fine.
This is fine.
Asta immediately uses his Demon Destroyer blade. Hey, he uses one of his anti-magic things. He's fine. He says immediately, like, I can take this guy on by myself. So Damnatio recognized, like, okay, so I can't use my scale magic on him because he doesn't have any magic. But I can use atmosphere magic to, just tear his body apart like I did with a bunch of his companions. And Asta just wades through it. He's just got anti-magic surging around him, makes a bubble, and Damnatio realizes, like, oh, he canceled that too. Okay. And
This whole thing just read as like, 6-year-olds playing make believe and just being like,
no, it didn't.
like,
No, it didn't.
it's like, I've got an anti-magic sword. Oh yeah? Well, I make the air collapse around you. Nuh-uh.
My anti-magic sword casts an anti-magic bubble around me, so your anti-magic air can't get through it.
That's so how this read to me.
Well, I've got a
Couldn't
sword
remotely
too.
take this seriously.
I've got a sword too, so I can't lose to you. And then Asta uses it and then kills him in one blow. So there we go. That's the end of the chapter. It's a very short one. Not just in terms of like action, but this was just like 12 pages long, which occasionally we've been getting from Black Clover recently. I mean, it's definitely for the best because Tabata had a couple of health scares recently. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it's just a matter of like when you draw a weekly manga, it grinds you down. So sometimes people
Yeah,
need to take breaks.
it sounds like that sounds ungood.
Very very basic chapter, straightforward. Asta was gonna get a chapter where he looked cool, so he did. That's about all I have to say about it. But we'll say I am glad that Ichika is coming along for this because she was definitely the best new character that was introduced in this arc, and hopefully we'll get to see more to her than just like what we kind of had as like the climax of Asta's training arc, which was just Ichika getting shonen jump female charactered, to put it
Right.
shortly. Yami is her brother, by the way, whom she was until recently under the impression had murdered her entire clan. It was a very big, Sasuke kind of moment of realization for her. So, hey, there's more character development for it to happen, hopefully. But that's it. That's Black Clover this week, which leaves just one more thing to talk about, and that is
One
of
more
course
piece to discuss.
one piece. And first off, we do have a big 2-page color spread to commemorate the launch of the Netflix series, the Netflix live action series, which has been getting much hyping done up for it. The cast all seem lovely, and I hope that they do well. Um, what happened last time in One Piece for now? Yeah.
Well, evidently, all of the main characters just decided to take a week off because none of them are in this one, and I have no idea who anyone is.
What a chapter for you to have happen to you. This is like, this is such an important chapter too. It's a really important, like, background supporting character seemingly dies in this. So, yeah, you're right. We've taken a break from Luffy and company. It looks like we're probably going to rejoin them based off of the note that the chapter ends on. But yeah, we've been following Kobe and Garp of the Marines as they've taken on some of Blackbeard's forces, which include Aokiji, who used to be a Marine, but had a fight following a very important battle pre-time skip One Piece about 12 years ago. And afterwards, he left the Marines and ended up aligning himself with Blackbeard's crew. I don't think he officially has joined the crew, as from what we've been told, but he is definitely working with them right now, which includes.
I'll take your word for it. I've never actually even I've never seen or read One Piece ever. I only know it through, social osmosis, which
Right.
admittedly
There's a lot
kind
of
of hard to avoid.
Aokiji's probably best known for trying to hunt down Robin as a little kid. Because, like, Robin kind of knew some secret that the government didn't want her to know about, so he was tasked with trying to hunt her down, and she was protected by this big happy guy who seemingly died back then. So he's ice cold, literally. He's got ice powers.
Ah, of course.
But we start off this chapter with Garp, who is instructing some Marines, including Kobe and Helmeppo, seemingly at the very beginning of their training, because this is like Kobe when around like pre-time skip times, he's looking like a little kid and stuff. And Garp, he basically kind of presents his own version of like a trolley problem, or I guess
Yeah.
more like the Kobayashi Maru kind of, which is
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
you're on an
Like
island.
here's a difficult situation
Right.
that is a struggle in both philosophical and moralistic terms.
Right. And so the problem that Gar presents the class with our chapter title of 1088, his final lesson, is you're left behind on an island full of ravenous beasts. There's an old man and a baby who've been abandoned there. You're on a rowboat. It can only fit 2 people. What do you do? And Kobe's answer is, I get off the boat so that both of them can make it. And immediately Garp throws a freaking bottle of sake at his head. It's like, no! No! You leave the old man to die! That fucker is gonna have like 8-9 months left. You take the young kid who's got his whole life ahead of him. Think. Why have you joined the Navy? Who are you trying to save? You're trying to save people's futures, and that old man ain't got no future. You take the baby. And one of the I guess the actually proper instructor says like, no, all lives are equal. Stop that. And Garp's like, no, the future of the young is infinite. And so we cut a bit ahead forward to kind of like how Kobe got everyone into this situation when he was captured by the Blackbeard pirates, forcing Garp and everyone else to try and come and save him. So he traded himself in order to save everyone else. He's an important member of, he's in Sword, he's part of this elite agency, he's a captain in the Marines, and so Blackbeard was like, all right, yeah, it's a high price you set for yourself, but it was like, yeah, that's how Kobe's in this situation, which is they're trying to save him, but one of Blackbeard's branch crew members, oh gosh, it's not Oh gosh, Groose. No, that's not it. I can't remember his name. He makes cat puns. It doesn't matter. He's got an island fruit which lets him make a giant hand of rock emerge from the land to smash their ship. And everyone's like, "Oh shit, they're all gonna die. What are we gonna do?" Garp is on the ground, wounded and not moving, while everyone's panicking over how all the sailors aboard are going to be saved. But Garp tells them all, "You boys can save them. Listen close. I'll give you an opportunity. Kobe, destroy the hand of the island monster. Rear Admiral Groose, protect the ship from the falling rubble. And Lieutenant Commander Helmeppo, make sure that the two aren't interfered with. So be decisive. Go fly." And they start moving. The island hand goes to crush the ship. People start firing at Kobe to stop him, and Helmeppo uses his kukri to stop the cannonball, which explodes on top of him. He's fine. You know, the way that you are whenever you hit a cannonball that explodes with a sword. He's fine.
I'm over here just going like, why did the cannonball explode? Exactly. It doesn't have a fuse.
I guess it might not be a cannonball. It was fired from like a bazooka, but it looks like a cannonball. I don't know. Maybe it's a bomb. So
I can only imagine, but yeah, like it doesn't seem like anything that would actually explode. It just seems like a metallic mass.
Garp gets up to fight Aokiji and the others of the Blackbeard pirates, just charges into them, which shocks Aokiji, who thought he couldn't freaking move. Then he keeps on going, charges straight into the full-on island, and controlled by Pizarro. That's his name, Pizarro. And he's like, "What are you doing? Don't you care about your ship?" And he just smashes right into the skull of the thing, which also affects Pizarro because he's linked to it. And that's their opportunity. He's knocked off balance. The arm is raised up, and so Kobe just dashes up into the air and gets ready to fight it. And we get another flashback that explains that there was one more disciple that Garp had, who did the insane training that Aokiji and Garp did of just fucking punching battleships in order to get stronger. And Garp learned about this from from Helmeppo, who said like, "Look, he told me to keep this a secret, but in truth, he keeps on practicing after he trains with you," which Garp thinks is crazy. But Garp kind of took a liking to him after that. And Kobe goes up against the giant ship of the giant fist of the island, and he punches it, and the entire arm splits apart horizontally, which causes Pizarro to also go ow, ow, ow.
With exactly that much inflection.
Yeah, or maybe, well, he does cat puns all the time, so I guess he's going meow, 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 meow. The bits of rubble get caught by Groose's glorp web ability, and Garp thinks that this is all awesome. He's laughing about it. Helmeppo manages to snatch Kobe out of the air, and Kobe says "I did it." They fall onto the deck of the ship, and they're all celebrating together. Hey, they all made it. They're all gonna make it. And then they get contact from Garp, who of course is still on the island, and he issues the command: "Get away from the island at full speed. I'll manage on my own. Your safety is the top priority." And Kobe starts to issue the command "No, turn the ship around." But Garp says, "What happened here one day will be a major threat to all pirates. All of you are the future of the Navy." And we cut back to him, and Aokiji has frozen him with a giant-ass icicle sticking up through his stomach. And Garp is still just laughing over what has happened. And we are told in narration to finish off the chapter. The next day's headline spoke of the safe return of the Navy's young hero, Captain Kobe, the disappearance on Pirate Island of the legendary hero, Vice Admiral Garp, and the incident in which Straw Hat Luffy, Emperor of the Sea, barricade himself within future Island Egghead. And that is presumably where we will go back to after a bit of a break from Luffy and company in order to witness, seemingly, the death of Garp.
Yeah, so I had no idea what was going on, and there was a lot of talking.
Well, thanks. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like One Piece is something that I've always kind of been like, should I get into it? Should I get into it? Oh, there's so much of it. Should I get into it? Should I get it? And then like, all right, One Piece. How bad is this going to go? I have no idea what any of this is.
Yeah, I totally understand that. It's got, like you said, none of the Straw Hats are involved, so even the people that you have just kind of like tangentially learned about over time, there's nothing that stands out that's of importance to you. So I get that. And there's a lot of characters in One Piece. I don't know what to say.
Oh, I'm familiar with that part. What I'm not familiar with is most of them.
Right. So that is it, though. We had some chapters that I think were just really good this week, and some that even independent of context were good, which it's nice to have that fresh perspective on. So we are at the end of the podcast. So can you tell me what was your favorite chapter this week, and do you have an MVP, a favorite character as well?
Um, so I mentioned earlier that Blue Box was probably the one that stood out to me the most as like, okay, I just legit enjoy this for what it is. And, this particular chapter just kind of stands on its own. It's like, okay, devoid of context of anything or anything else, I'm able to pick up, what these characters are putting down. I know kind of the relationship going on here. I'm able to pick up on, the subtleties of how this relationship is going. These are very good characters, that are being written very well. And like, the personality in just, taking the kitchen implement and using that as, an impromptu microphone.
Yeah.
There's so much character in that. Neither of these characters are pushovers in this relationship. These two are very much, a team in this piece, as opposed to, two independent individuals who are just kind of put in a room together. It's like, no, 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 there's chemistry here.
Yeah.
So like, as an outsider who is not really familiar with any of this, any of these series, I should clarify.
Right. Right.
Uh, Blue Box is pretty much the one where that I would have the highest likelihood of going back to and just being like, okay, let's start from the beginning on this one. As for like standout character moments, I hate to say it, but it does come back to Chainsaw Man for that one. With just the complete like, damn, I wish I had some self-respect.
Oh man,
Several panels.
that would have been so cool if I had just done that instead of filleting this dead demon tentacle. That Denji seems really cool.
There's just a lot of character detail in the way that presents. So I kind of have to say that was the best one for me because like that was genuinely the first like big laugh that I had reading over all of these. Like it just worked. It didn't require me to know anything. It didn't require me to think about it extensively. It just worked. It's a good joke. It's a good character moment. It's like, all right, all right, all right. Maybe I'll also check out Chainsaw Man.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. For me, my favorite character this week is going to be Fiona, because she punched the shit out of that guy, and I thought that was great. My favorite chapter this week, it's weird. Like, I don't think I had the most like just straight up visceral positive reaction to it, but I think it is One Piece, and I just really like the way that the single chapter is set up with presenting this issue of like what's the right move here, where you don't have a right decision in this place. It's always a hard decision, And we see Kobe's answer is like, oh, you do the self-sacrificing thing. You help out people other than yourself. Garp thinks that
Mm-hmm.
that's stupid. And in the end, Garp is the one who sacrifices himself in order to save everyone else. But at the same time, he's not, deviating from his values because he understands, like, I'm the old
He's the
man.
old man.
All these people have futures ahead of them. He hasn't changed, yet he has also gone for the same answer as Kobe. And I think that that is really a really nice, clever little way of drawing it all together. Uh,
Right.
in this one, like just kind of single chapter setup and payoff for that.
Yeah,
Uh,
like I kind of had a feeling that was going on, but I'll be entirely honest. Like I could not actually tell who anyone was over the course of anything except Garp, because doesn't really have a visible change. You know, it's like
right,
he's still he's the doofy old guy with the huge mouth in both the past and the present.
right,
And so it's easy for me to flag, okay, I know who this is. I don't know who anyone else is. So, you know, the self-sacrifice move still being done by Kobe was kind of flew over my head because like I didn't
right.
realize that that's even who that was in the first place.
Totally get that. Yeah, Kobe had a ridiculous glow up in the time skip where, just has a completely different hairstyle, lost the glasses and stuff. So yeah, completely, completely unrecognizable, fully. Yes. Uh, so I can definitely see why that loses some of the impact when you don't have that to tie all the sequences together. Uh,
Right.
so this has, I think, been a very valuable experience. It's nice to have that perspective because, like, what they say about like comics is that every comic book issue is someone's first, and that's
Right.
like not how we're supposed to approach ongoing manga series with that thought. But at the
Hmm.
same time, these are things that run in magazines. It's
Like
supposed to be like
sometimes it's just kind of what happens is like someone just
right.
flips it over and it's like, all right, this looks okay. Let's give it a try. And then they either get hooked or they don't.
Right. So I think that there is definitely value in terms of remembering, like, okay, there is, something there approaching this fresh is it's nice to just kind of like assess that from fresh eyes sometimes. And yeah, absolutely, I think some of my favorite series this week were the ones that you liked because it was just they were just enjoyable chapters on their own. I just that also at the same time I with the context to appreciate, I did really like One Piece this week. Uh,
Right. I can definitely like now that I hear you sharing some of the context, it's like, oh, okay, this kid is that guy, and this is this, that's that. Okay, like now all the pieces are starting to fit together where they weren't for me previously, and it's like, okay, I can definitely see why you think as highly of it as you do, and I can totally respect that. But as someone who does not have that context, like this is not something that would hold my attention. Like it would for me, it was very difficult to follow, very visually busy. And, there's just so much going on. It's like, okay, I would have to go back to understand just what it is that's going on here. But it's One Piece. There's a lot.
right. Yeah, yeah, no, good stuff. That's it. That's I think we're gonna need to wrap up there. And I should say as well that the audience voted favorite series for this week to be Akane-Banashi, and MVP was Nightfall, was Fiona from Spy Family. So that's where we're gonna leave off. Finea,
I will throw in an honorable mention to Akane-Banashi. Like I did appreciate that one. I just had to start thinking about it a little bit before that appreciation manifested.
oh yeah, Blue Box and Akane-Banashi being your one too. I mean that's what those are the two that I would definitely at this point like recommend to people who are looking for is like, oh, what's like new in Shonen Jump, and it'll be those two. So
Yeah, and the fact that both of them stand out to me as being very atypical from what I
hmm
would associate with Shonen Jump makes them far more approachable to me because, what am going to usually associate Shonen Jump with, in a modern context is going to be something like
like new Exorcist.
Anyways, Exorcist, right, which, was pretty much the hardest deter of the entire lineup here that I had. I was like, all right, there's absolutely nothing holding my attention here. They're trying to go for like, oh, these girls are cute. Oh, romantic tension. Oh, wait a minute. And I'm just over here going, there's one dude I am sus of this.
Now, if the dude were a girl, actually, you
Yes.
know what? I say that with that tone. That would just be a better series.
Yes.
All right, guys, that is gonna do it for weekly manga recap this week. Thank you to special guest host for this week, Forneia. You can be found at twitch.tv/Forneia. Is that correct? Forneia for our audio only listeners.
That is correct. I'm even after this recording, I'm even going to get started on my own
Hey.
business. So, hey.
And so you do gaming stuff. Is that a fair description?
That is correct. I am a variety slash retro streamer. I do mostly retro games, be they console or PC. Like I'm like on Fridays. Currently, I'm running through Deus Ex,
I mean, you
which
did.
is an all-time classic. I've also gone through the original Unreal,
Oh
and a few other
wow!
things. On Sundays, I regularly play SMZ3, which is a hybrid game of Link to the Past, or Z3 as it's kind of referred to in certain circles, and Super Metroid. This is both of the games just kind of being stapled together. And you'll find like the hook shot in Brinstar or the plasma beam in Swamp Palace or something like that. And I run that every week on Sunday and just kind of, time trial myself. How fast can I get through this? And in the middle of the weeks, it's just kind of anything goes. This Monday, I did Terraria, and I'm inclined to get started on like Sonic Adventure 2 sometime soonish. Not today. Gonna hold that forward until next week. I'd like to give that game a full evening because I'm very fond of it, and I'm always very annoyed whenever people who are not familiar with the game say that it controls badly because they're not familiar with the controls.
Right.
And they say that the level layouts are not conducive to going fast when they are. It's just a matter of you're supposed to replay the game. It was designed to be
Mm.
replayed, so you're supposed to become more familiar with the stages so then you can go fast. So I kind of want to just be like, no, no, no. Allow me.
Sometimes that's what it takes. So well, and yeah, and we play D&D together. So
Oh yeah, that thing.
yeah. On That's on Mecha GM stream
Yep.
on Saturdays. So that is going to do it now for the show. Guys, thank you for tuning in. We record usually on twitch.tv/RoloT. Because Quinn was not available this week, we hosted it over on twitch.tv/NickFTime. The reason I was able to get out the word on that was because of our Discord server. If you are into the Week Manga Recap and everything, if you want to get to know some more members of our community, join that. The link is posted on like every post that we do, and then you can stay up to date on what's going on whenever some plans change like this and we have to call an audible and something else happens. That's the best way to keep up to date. Also, you can use that to find like all the background history associated with the show, all the statistics and stuff that Ninja X3i keeps track of in the Google Doc. Make suggestions for series for us to cover in the future by recommending them on the doc. And you can also talk with our various different members of our community. There are game nights that get held on there in voice chat and other stuff. And that's yeah. And we also want to give special thanks to people who support us on Patreon, patreon.com/weekly manga recap, where we put up bonus episodes on a usually monthly basis. We did a in-depth discussion where Quinn explained the lore of the Mortal Kombat series to me, and it is one of my favorite things that we have ever done. I just got to
Oh
kind of
boy.
get in touch with about 25 years of Mortal Kombat games that I had never played while we made stupid jokes about them. Uh,
Oh boy. If you ever want a time and you have a whole evening open, I can tell you, I can recite from memory the entire Metal Gear history.
Oh God, might happen sometime. Uh, Special thanks go out to Wensley.Cher and Milo Jack Stillis for creating the opening sequence of the video version of the podcast, as well as to Steve Man, who draws boobs and also title cards for us occasionally. You can check him out, Steve Man Art, wherever wherever you can find him, which is many different places at this juncture. And that's gonna do it, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. It should be Quinn and myself again, and we will catch you at same WMR place, same WMR channel, which is this one.
Totally this
Goodbye.
one. Bye.